which teams improved themselves and really bolstered their status going into 2023 via this first transfer portal window. Okay? Because there are some teams that really went out and really made a big-time difference to really improve their team and maybe vault them to a division championship status, maybe even a conference championship status in 2023. The first team I want to focus on is the Wisconsin Badgers. Okay, if you've been watching this channel lately, you know how much I love what Wisconsin has been doing. Since Luke Fickell has been named the head coach, he's been doing business. Whether it's been the coaching staff, of course, I've been in love with the Phil Longo hire, and you'll hear that name maybe a couple of times here in this video, right? Bringing in Mike Tressel as his defensive coordinator from Cincinnati. You could go up and down the coaching staff list. He's bringing in a really good coaching staff to Madison, Wisconsin. And he's also bringing in a lot of players that are going to turn Wisconsin around, and they're going to turn Wisconsin around very quickly. Okay, you got to start with the quarterback position, because when you talk about impact players, when you talk about what really improves your team, you got to have a good quarterback. You got to have good quarterback play in college football to really take it to the next level. Wisconsin didn't get one. They didn't get two. They got three quarterbacks. So they've really got, and don't forget about that quarterback, the high school guy that they're able to bring in as well. So they've got the quarterback position on lockdown for the next 3 to 4 years. When is the last time you heard that about the University of Wisconsin? All right, Badger fans, you've been dealing with the John Stockos, the Scott Tolzienes, the Alex Hornerbrooks, where you're going to get average quarterback play now, like Nick Evers, a guy from Oklahoma that they brought in. That's a 4-star quarterback talent. These are top 100 nationally in their high school classes type of talent. That's what you have at quarterback, and you have an offensive coordinator that has a proven track record of bringing the most out of that talent. Look at the last 2 quarterbacks that Phil Longo has coached. Sam Howell, who put up big numbers, and Drake May, who may be a Heisman contender in 2023, and maybe the best young quarterback in all of college football. You put it all together, and Wisconsin is in a great spot because it all starts at the quarterback position. Like, I put out a video ranking the quarterbacks right now 1 through 14 in the Big Ten Conference. I put Tanner Mordecai as number 3, right behind J.J. McCarthy and Taulia Tagovailoa. It would not be any surprise at all if Tanner Mordecai finds himself at numero uno, at number 1 at some point during the 2023 Big Ten football season. I think he's that good. You look at his numbers, you look at his tape at SMU, and now you bring in an offensive coordinator that can get the most out of you. Now you bring in wide receivers, which I'll get to in just a minute. You bring in a lot of talent around you. That's going to be a pretty good recipe for success in Madison, Wisconsin. Let's talk about those wide receivers because they needed to bolster it. I thought their wide receiving core was pretty good with Chemre Dike, Skylar Bell, Keontae Lewis. I'll stay at that. I'll stay at pretty good. But the additions that they've made at the wide receiver position have taken them from pretty good to one of the best wide receiving cores in the Big Ten. Once again, that's another video that I put up pretty recently. Go check it out on the channel. You look at C.J. Williams. He was a top 100 guy in his high school class a year ago when he came out and he committed to USC. This last year as a freshman at USC, didn't get a ton of time on the field because they were, as well, pretty loaded in the wide receiver room over there. So now you bring in a guy, C.J. Williams, a long, lanky, go up and get it type of wide receiver. Maybe unproven, but the talent is there to make him into one of the best receivers on this team. And then you look at a proven commodity in Bryson Green, the transfer from Oklahoma State. I really believe this guy, is going to be a star this season. This guy, I think it's going to be him and Chemre Dike that are really going to break out, and maybe both of them, one maybe or the other as well, is going to have a 1,000-yard receiving season. Because you can't take what Wisconsin and the numbers Wisconsin receivers have done in the past. You got to look at maybe what North Carolina receivers have done in the past, because this is a new offense and this is a brand new style of play. Wisconsin changing philosophy, all right? And a lot of times when you make a coaching change and you change philosophy nowadays, you need to go into the transfer portal. And you need to go into the transfer portal to find the players to fit what you want to do. Wisconsin has done a great job of that. They are a top 10 transfer class in the country, the top transfer class in the Big Ten right now. Let's talk about the University of Michigan. Michigan's a great team. Back-to-back Big Ten titles, back-to-back appearances in the college football playoff. They're a great team. What do they need the transfer portal for, right? There's multiple ways that teams can approach the transfer portal. I just talked about Wisconsin, right? Coaching change, new system, got to bring in a bunch of new players. Michigan is probably how you should approach the transfer portal, right? You recruit at a top 10 level, and say what you want about Michigan's recruiting as of late, but you recruit at a high level, and then you use the transfer portal to plug the holes that you have on your team. And that's exactly what Michigan is doing right here, right now. Michigan has been an offensive line juggernaut the past few years. Back-to-back winners of the Joe Moore Award as the top offensive line in the country in all of college football. And what do? They go out and they reload on the offensive line. You get guys like a Miles Hinton. You get guys like Drake Nugent, both of those guys from Stanford. You look at Ladarius Henderson on the interior. All of those guys, Power 5 experience in the Pac-12. They're going to be able to come in. Now, I'm not saying, they're going to play at a level, an All-American type of level like an Oluwatimi, right? Sometimes better. Some linemen, of course, are better than others. Some players are better than other players. But this is still going to be a really good offensive line. Michigan knows who they are. And that's what this transfer portal class told me, is we need to retool on the positions that are important to us. Offensive line is very important to Michigan. This is a Michigan team that's built from the inside out. This is a Michigan team that wants to be physical. It all starts with our offensive line. Great job in the transfer portal retooling that with these three guys. What else is Michigan good at? They're good at defense. Okay, Ernest Hausman, the transfer from Nebraska. You watch kind of the last half of that Nebraska football season. Ernest Hausman was not only transforming into maybe one of their better linebackers after they were kind of injured up on that side of the ball, the Huskers were, but man, in terms of the whole defense, in terms of the whole unit, Ernest Hausman was turning into one of the better players on that unit for the University of Nebraska. So him coming into Michigan, him being a part of this program is going to be a big deal, because you look at how Michigan has developed their elite defenders. You look at a guy like an Aiden Hutchinson, like a Chase Winovich. You look at those types of guys, they can take them to the next level and be first round, second round, those types of guys, NFL draft picks. Ernest Hausman is still a young kid. It was his true freshman season last year at Nebraska. And he just, as the more playing time and the more repetitions he got, he continued to get better and better and better. A couple of 10-tackle games towards the end of the season for Ernest Hausman. And he's going to take that, his talent level to the next level, I believe, at the University of Michigan. How about Josiah Stewart as well? Transfer from Coastal Carolina. This is a guy that's going to come off the edge, right? You talk about maybe the interior at linebacker. You're going to see Ernest Hausman maybe with Junior Colson. Look at the outside. Now, no disrespect to Mike Morris or any of those guys in this pass rush, but maybe it wasn't quite at the level that it was in 2021. Josiah Stewart could be a guy to bring that back to Michigan, to bring that vaunted pass rush back. He had 13 sacks in his freshman season in 2021 at Coastal Carolina. Okay, this is a guy that can get after it. He's got the size to give people trouble on the exterior. He's got the speed to give him trouble on the interior. You can line him up at a variety of spots on the defensive line. Okay, offensive line, defense. That's where Michigan is at their best. That's what kind of a football team they are. They use the transfer portal to recoup at those two areas. Love it. Love what the University of Michigan did there. Let's talk about Nebraska. Okay, because when we talk about retooling your football team, I talked about that with Wisconsin a little bit earlier, right? Wisconsin is going from ground and pound I formation. Let's throw big old 45 Matt Bernstein at fullback and let him plow the way. And they're going to the air raid and they're spreading it out and they're looking to put points and yards on the board. You look at Nebraska, spread it out, Scott Frost type of system. Now they're reining it in. They're getting back to what Nebraska is known for. Powerful football, interior football, physicality, meanness. We're the big boys. That kind of a deal. So when you take a look at what Nebraska has done, their class is all about potential. Okay, if they hit on half of these guys, which you're going to hit and miss on some of these transfers, you hit on half of these guys, Nebraska will still be sitting in a really good spot. And I believe that they've made it known that they want to be better on defense and they want to be better on the interior. I think one guy that might not get a lot of press that I think is going to be a key part for Nebraska on the inside of their offensive line is Ben Scott, the transfer from Arizona State. It's the second time I've talked about an Arizona State offensive lineman, so I'm not sure what was going on up there, but seems like they had a pretty good offensive line in Tempe. But with Ben Scott coming in, I think he's going to anchor that offensive line and make it better on the interior. But you look at some other guys that are coming in for Nebraska, like you look at M.J. Sherman, former 5-star from Georgia, a lot of SEC kids that didn't get their playing time or whatever, weren't happy for one reason or another, highly recruited kids. M.J. Sherman, of course, we're going to talk about Eric Gilbert because, man, I believe Eric Gilbert has the potential to be one of the best targets in the entire Big Ten next season. Okay, you look at his tape from 2020 at LSU. Remember, that was coming off the year where they lost a bunch of talent. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. If you watch NFL football now, those names are pretty familiar. Those are NFL superstars. In 2020, 35 catches, 368 yards for Eric Gilbert. This is a guy that if he can get his head straight with his off-the-field stuff, this is a guy that has all the tools, the size. He has the speed. He can line up in the slot. He can line up at tight end. I believe this is a guy that could take Nebraska's offense to the next level. There's no question about that. But, and I'm going to talk about the rest of Nebraska's transfer class, but maybe some of their biggest transfers, I guess, if you want to call them that, are the guys that didn't transfer, the guys that entered the portal, but Matt Rule was able to bring them back. Xavier Betts and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, right? Those are two receivers that I think are big-time targets, right? Xavier Betts didn't play the season. He kind of opted out of the team, so to speak, in March. Middle of the season type of thing for Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. Those are two receivers that I think are big-time and can have big-time breakout seasons for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But Matt Rule wants to be good on defense. He wants to make that a priority. I look at a lot of these guys from the SEC, highly recruited, lots of stars. I look at Chief Borders. I look at Elijah Judy. I look at Corey Collier. Of course, I mentioned M.J. Sherman before. They are loading up on a lot of this 4- and 5-star talent from the SEC. And if they can, like I said, if they can hit on half of these guys, right? You look at Judy, you look at Sherman, you look at Borders, defensive line, linebackers. You hit on half of them, and I think you're going to have a pretty good season at Nebraska. They've really hit the transfer portal hard, and you need to really retool a program to try to, because you can rebuild a program a lot faster than you could before. There's no question about that. And, of course, we got to talk about Jeff Sims at quarterback. I think he provides a dual threat that's going to make things awfully scary. I would love to see read option type of things with Jeff Sims and A.J. Allen and Anthony Grant in the backfield. Nebraska is putting it all together at a lot of positions, and I think there's a lot of diversity in what they're doing. Like when you look at what Scott Frost did in the transfer portal, he was very focused on skill positions. But I think Matt Rule is doing it on defense, he's doing it on the interior, and he's doing it at the skill positions as well. So diversity in the transfer portal is very good as well. But last thing on Nebraska, lots of potential. Can this coaching staff take these transfers and turn it into something? Can they take these guys who we know are talented? We know going to schools like Florida, Georgia, A&M, whatever. We know they're talented. Can it be transferred to the next level? Can it be transferred to the Big Ten? That's what we want to know. I'm going to finish things off in terms of the teams with Minnesota. Okay, a lot of people have been talking about the teams that I just mentioned. Like, I've been talking about Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan ad nauseum. But you look a little bit deeper at Minnesota, and this was a team that was in the Big Ten West race for the last few years, and you really saw the development of Ethan Kaliakmanis towards the end of the season. Okay? And you saw this guy, I think, has a little something in terms of throwing the football. This guy can put it in the air. This guy can make things happen. And, now with the guy like a John Michael Schmitz and some guys on their offensive line that are going to be leaving, you take a look at Muhammad Ibrahim, the best running back in Minnesota history, that is leaving. This was a team that was focused on running the football. But as we move forward with the new coordinators to 2023, I think this is a Minnesota team that could get a lot more explosive. Because if you look at the guys that they've got coming in the transfer portal, things might be looking pretty good for the Golden Gophers. Okay, I want to focus first on the receivers because you bring back Chris Ottman-Bell. Okay, that's a big thing for the Gophers. You got Michael Brown-Stevens. You got Brevin Spann-Ford. You got the hyphenated all-stars, right, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then you bring in guys like Corey Crooms, 11 touchdowns combined the last 2 seasons at Western Michigan, a couple of times all-MAC performer. Okay, then you bring in Elijah Spencer from the University of Charlotte, over 900 yards, 12 touchdowns. I believe Elijah Spencer is going to be a guy that's going to come in and maybe be 1-2 with Chris Ottman-Bell in that receiving core. Okay, they've got a lot of depth, and I think they've got a lot of talent. I think I'm going to see Corey Crooms. I'm going to see Elijah Spencer rise up the depth chart. And then you're going to see a guy like a Michael Brown-Stevens fit into the role that I think he was meant to be. I don't know if he was meant to be a number 2 or maybe a number 3. Okay, he's meant to be that third option, that fourth option in the slot that can get you key first downs. I didn't also mention Lamecki Brockington. I didn't mention Dalen Wright. There's a lot of depth in this receiving core. But that's receiving. I think the biggest impact player for Minnesota is going to come from the running back position. That's right. A year after losing Muhammad Ibrahim, it's a transfer running back that I think is going to come in and follow. He's not going to completely fill the footsteps. Okay, he's not going to do that. But what he is going to do is bring some balance to this Minnesota offense. I look at Sean Tyler. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons at Western Michigan. This is a guy that's very explosive. Okay, Sean Tyler is going to be able to step in. And, the reason why I say confidently that I think he's going to step in very well at Minnesota is because when Muhammad Ibrahim was out last year, you had Trey Potts and Bryce Williams and guys. I just didn't really see that much in terms of the depth of the running back position for Minnesota. When Muhammad Ibrahim went out, this team really suffered. Okay, you need talent in the backfield. I believe P.J. Fleck said we need more talent in the backfield. And boy, he's going back to his roots, going back to Western Michigan, going back to Kalamazoo to really improve this football team. Who do you guys think really improved their football team via the transfer portal in this first window? Leave your thoughts in the comments below because, man, this transfer portal window had a lot of movement. Very exciting for teams in the Big Ten Conference.